Todd Blanche run out of gas? Has he run out of moves? Did he expend all of his political capital and currency just to get out of the Senate Judiciary Committee, squeaked by 12-10, but did so in a way that it was a Pyrrhic victory because he's going to lose the war? He may have won that minor battle, but lose the war, as Susan Collins, the Maine senator, has declared that she's of no vote on the Senate floor where the fight next turns. Can she convince two others of her colleagues to follow her now that she's done basically the unthinkable for Todd Blanche? They were so worried about Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Cornyn and Tillis, but look at Susan Collins stepping it up. And so the case against Todd Blanche is not a hard one to make, but apparently the presentation of the closing arguments made by the Democratic senators like Senator Blumenthal and Senator Whitehouse and Senator Booker and Senator Klobuchar and Senator Coons helped turn the worm against Todd Blanche. Certainly helped convince Susan Collins that she should have, for once in her life, the intestinal fortitude to stand up to Donald Trump. I do a complete analysis of all of this, including the case that was so eloquently made by the Senate Democrats as the precursor for the Block Blanche fight that now goes to the full Senate floor on the Intersection podcast. And here is my analysis. Todd Blanche may have made a devil's bargain along with two willing participants in Senator Cornyn of Texas and Senator Tillis of North Carolina. This was always a bit of a charade. Tillis said, I won't endorse him unless the Jan 6 fund is declared dead with a piece of paper. Okay. What about the settlement amendment that Todd Blanche did the following day, Mr. Senator Tillis, in which he created tax immunity to the tax cheat named Donald Trump and his family, worth hundreds of millions of dollars? That's what this case has always been about. It's never been about a Jan 6 fund. What about that? That's, it's a half a loaf. It's a half a loaf. It's not a half a loaf. It's 100% corruption. And the other thing that Tillis said he was concerned about was the survivors of the Epstein scandal. Oh, he's got to meet with the survivors of the Epstein scandal. So Todd Blanche meets with the survivors of the Epstein scandal for an hour. He gives them nothing, ice in winter. They feel worse off than before they met with him. I had Danny Bensky on and interviewed her recently, actually on this show about 2 weeks ago. She said her whole body shook. She was so emotionally traumatized by Todd Blanche's just brushing them off and acting like he had a stone in his shoe and he's being called to the principal's office to account for something he really didn't want to account for. But that satisfied Thom Tillis and Cornyn too. And so, he got right by them. Separately, and we're going to talk about Murkowski of Alaska in a minute. Apparently, Murkowski made it a condition that Todd Blanche fly to Alaska in order to kiss her ass to get his vote, or get her vote for him, I guess I should say. But today in the confirmation hearing wasn't about the you-know-what session going on among the Republicans. That was a little dirty. The you-know-what session. I have a phrase for it. I'm just not saying it out loud. I may be tired, but I'm not letting my manners go. But whatever that circle jerk was, that was the Republicans embracing Todd Blanche. Leave it to the Senate Democrats to make the case to the American people and to leave Todd Blanche diminished and hobbled as a result. They are speaking to us. They're speaking to the nation. They're speaking to history. They're speaking to the fellow senators who need to vote yay or nay on Todd Blanche in the next week or so. Sheldon Whitehouse, who I've had on the show before, senator from Rhode Island, made an impassioned 16-minute speech against Todd Blanche, and he did not mince words. I'm going to show you two clips of Sheldon Whitehouse back to back. Let's play the first one.
Today, I think, is a sad and embarrassing day for this committee as it looks like on a party line vote, we are going to advance out of this committee probably the most discreditable person ever to seek the office of Attorney General of the United States. The reasons to vote against him number in the hundreds, but let's just focus on a few where my Republican colleagues purport to have great concern. Let's start with the Epstein files, where Todd Blanche participated in the cover-up, continues to participate in the cover-up, and is responsible for a massive screw-up of the release of the documents. Cover-up and screw-up on the Epstein files. What do I mean by cover-up? Well, first, they looked at 4 FBI 302s that were the testimony of a woman who told the FBI in a formal statement that she had been sexually assaulted and physically assaulted by Donald Trump around 13 or 14 years of age. Of those 4 302s, they released 1. The one that did not mention Donald Trump. Well, fortunately for transparency, these documents had been released in other areas and bait stamped. So people figured out that some were missing. And with that, the other 302s that mentioned Donald Trump had to be produced. Only because they got caught were those 302s produced. And right now, as we sit here, Todd Blanche is still sitting on 37 pages that are almost certainly the agent's notes off of which the 302s were taken. That should be disclosed under the Epstein files law, but instead, those 37 pages remain covered up.
Okay. I mean, I could play the whole 16 minutes and I think you'd get the point. And Sheldon, Senator Whitehouse, knows from what he's talking about, right? He was a U.S. attorney in Rhode Island. He's been a prosecutor. He's been on the Judiciary Committee for a couple of decades or so. And, you know, we expected him to lead the charge. And he did. I mean, there's nobody that did a better job than Sheldon Whitehouse of trying to tear down Todd Blanche during his questioning. But the difference you're seeing, just think of the numbers I used. The Senate Judiciary Committee was in control of the Republicans this time around. And the Republicans set the rules. And the rules were 10 minutes per senator. So that's all each of the 10 Democratic senators had. 10 minutes apiece. They had 100 minutes. That's it. Sheldon Whitehouse, by contrast, just gave a 16-minute closing argument against Todd Blanche. And he's not the only one. But let me play another clip of Sheldon Whitehouse because it's so powerful and it proves my point. Play it.
There's Epstein for you. And let me ask the letter from the Epstein victims, 2 Senators Tillis and Cornyn, to be put into the record. So next we get to this crooked slush fund Trump family tax amnesty scam. Let's take a look at that. We've got these 2 new pieces of paper, one signed only by Todd Blanche, one not signed by anybody, neither of which has any legal effect whatsoever. They are decorative. So what problems do they leave behind? Well, one is, can you trust Todd Blanche going forward? I will tell you, I do not. I think it would be unreasonable to trust him going forward. There is enough weasel room in these documents to drive a truck through. And what might that truck look like? Well, you could get rid of the anti-weaponization fund for $1.776 billion And in a month, put out the Trump Justice Fund for $1.9 billion. Nothing in this document prevents anything like that from happening. You could open a drive-up window at the Department of Justice for cop beaters from January 6th to come through and get friendly Federal Tort Claims Act settlements from the Department of Justice. They're already handing out settlements to Trump's allies. What's to prevent the drive-up window? Come on in. Here we are. We got the friendly form for you to file, and here's a check. Nothing prevents the cop beaters from being funded by the Trump Department of Justice. But let's assume that we really have made a big improvement here. Let's assume that the burglar has been forced to give back some of the jewelry he stole. Being forced to give back some ill-gotten gains doesn't mean you're not still a burglar. There's a question of the man's character, that he was willing to get into these schemes in the first place.
Now, we also had Senator Schiff of California. Donald Trump likes to use nicknames because he's petty and disgusting and sophomoric. He's the guy that Donald Trump calls Shifty Shift, and he's been trying to indict him for the last 550 days of his administration for some sort of mortgage fraud because he doesn't like that when Adam Schiff was in the House, he was one of the House managers for one of Donald Trump's impeachments. So he's been going after Schiff ever since. You wouldn't know how Schiff has responded. He's not in fear. He is vigilant. He is presenting his case to the American people without fear. And here's a clip from Adam Schiff.
So this is someone who has violated his code of ethics, blatantly misled this committee in testimony, supported the establishment of a fund for cop beaters, concealed and covered up documents implicating the president in the Epstein files, gone after the president's enemies, and used the DOJ to enrich the president in a collusive settlement. Is this who we're prepared to confirm as Attorney General? It appears so. The fundamental problem with Todd Blanche is not that he's inexperienced, not that he's not capable, not that he's not intelligent. The problem with confirming Todd Blanche is that he has never been able to shed his role as criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump. He just can't do it. He does not represent the American people now. He will never represent the American people. He will never do what's best for the American people. He will only do what's best for Donald Trump. And you cannot leave someone like that as the nation's #1 law enforcement official, not when you have a corrupt president engaged in the most unprecedented, self-enriching schemes we have ever seen. You just can't do it and hope to have anything left of the rule of law. I urge a no vote on this confirmation, and I yield back.
And then we've had Cory Booker, the senior senator for New Jersey, on a number of times leading into the confirmation vote. We just had him on recently on the intersection, and I thought he did a masterful job as well. Here's a clip of the case made, his version of the closing argument against Todd Blanche by Senator Cory Booker. Play the clip.
They didn't get together to say, this is really bad. This is eroding trust in the justice system. This is eroding trust in the rule of law. We have to find a way to hold powerful people accountable. No, they came together with Todd Blanche in the room. How do we protect the president? And what happened after that? One of the most unusual things in the history of our country happened after that. Todd Blanche, at the highest heights of our Justice Department, ran to the prison of Ghislaine Maxwell. This is unprecedented. This is, lawyers tell me, untoward. This is corrupting. He didn't study the case files. He didn't talk to the prosecutors. No, he ran to the jail cell and met with her for 2 days, insulting every single Epstein victim that had been asking for a meeting for years. And after 2 days of meetings, did we get information that led to an indictment? No. Did we get information that led to new opens of investigations? No. Did we get one more conviction? No. What did we get? That a convicted sex offender was able to leave her confinement and go to the cushiest prison in our land, that by Bureau of Prison Law, by DOJ law, is a violation of their principles. So Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in the lowest possible confinement after giving no information that helped us get one more investigation started, and has been silent. And the man responsible for that, we are about to make the Attorney General of the United States of America. This man is not our lawyer. He is not America's lawyer. He is about to become Trump's sword against his adversaries and shield against any scrutiny. The shield is going to shield him from tax cheating. The shield is going to shield him from investigation for any involvement he may have had in Epstein's deeds. And the sword, I've seen it. Unprecedented that the Attorney General should investigate colleagues here on this committee. This is farcical. It would be literally laughably funny if it wasn't so dangerous. We are about to put a person in one of the most powerful positions in the land, vital for not only enforcing the law, protecting national security, but also vital for upholding our democracy. And my Republican colleagues sound like Jan Brady, Marsha, Biden, Biden. You are worried about a pickpocket when it comes to grand theft larceny. When it comes to our democracy, you're worried about someone who is doing petty theft while there is the murder of our democratic traditions going on before our eyes. We are in dangerous waters, folks. We are in dangerous waters. We are turning the ideals of justice and this committee into a mockery by letting the least qualified person, a person proven to do Donald Trump's will, over the law. He is about Trump and not truth. He is about corruption and not the Constitution. He's about being Donald Trump's lawyer and not the people's lawyer. This is so deeply wrong. We will rue the day that we let this man have this much power under such a corrupt president. Thank you.
Now, it's not just because Todd Blanche is unethical or it has been accused of contumacious conduct, contemptuous conduct in a court of law, or bad faith, or lack of ethics, or the fact that he has willingly allowed Donald Trump to weaponize the Department of Justice and go on the attack against Donald Trump's perceived political enemies or targets. It's not because there is rampant abuse of the grand jury process by prosecutors, because the tone is set from the top, and this tone is rotten, as led by Todd Blanche. But Todd Blanche also says things in public, and then he's caught saying other things that show you why he needs to be stopped. Let's just take one example, shall we? The Dobbs decision. Remember that decision 3.5 years ago where the Supreme Court took away a woman's right to choose, overturning 50 years of precedent established by Roe versus Wade. First time in American history that a constitutional right was given by the Supreme Court in the Roe decision, for instance, and then was taken away subsequently, right? They may not grant new rights, but they don't take away constitutionally protected rights until we got the Dobbs decision written by Sam Alito. And remember what they said at that time in the decision? I'll summarize it for you. We're not saying that individual states aren't capable, who are closer to the people, in deciding whether that state is going to allow the choice or not. All we're saying is it's not a constitutionally protected right that finds any residence or any location in the Constitution or our interpretation of it. So it's a state by state issue, which is why we have, 23 states that don't allow it and the rest allow it. And then you've got women, especially those on the lower economic rung, who are forced to carry children to term or die in back alleys because they live in states that won't allow it, or will criminalize or try to criminalize a woman crossing state lines into a state that does allow it. So if you thought that those states were out of whack, like Texas's bounty hunting regulation, SB 5, then you're gonna hate what you hear Todd Blanche say about how he is going to use the Department of Justice, the Food and Drug Administration, and the Department of Human and Health Services to go after every state to make sure the Dobbs decision is the law of the land. That is exactly the opposite of even what the Supreme Court said. They didn't say that a woman that abortion was mandated to be illegal throughout the country, right? They didn't ban abortion. They said it was a state-by-state decision. So what do you make of this clip of Todd Blanche talking about effectively taking the Dobbs decision and taking it to all 50 states? Play the clip.
To know this is a big part of our job. A big part of my job as the acting Attorney General and Attorney General Bondi before me was bringing back regularity to the Department of Justice and the government when it comes to protecting religious liberty. And we're not done. We have a lot of work to do with some of the policies around pro-life and some of the pro-abortion work that the Biden administration and the Justice Department allowed to happen. Some of that is taking longer than we want, but rest assured that we're working, hand in hand with HHS and the FDA and the White House and President Trump's team to get permanent solutions so that the Dobbs decision becomes permanent in every single state. So that means that if states are allowing, if states have said we are going to protect the unborn and we're going to protect every life from the moment of conception, we're putting practices and policies in place so that other states and other organizations can't attack that, and they can't, do things like they're doing with mailing in mail order drugs and things like that. And it's a process that takes a lot of time, and that's why it's been 19 months and we don't have complete victory yet. But we will have victory, and victory will be soon, and it will be permanent. And that's an important thing to everybody to remember.
If this kind of stuff doesn't make your blood boil and get you motivated to go to the polls, bring others with you, register to vote, parachute into blue states to help on the ground to make sure that those states are secure for Democrats, or parachute into red states to hold down the margins of victory. If that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. Just pick any one issue. It doesn't have to be a right to choose. It could be civil rights and civil liberties. It could be how depraved and inhumane Donald Trump's immigration and migration policy is and deportation policy is. It could be how they are cutting off funds to blue states, but not red states, to punish them for not supporting Donald Trump, including FEMA aid. Pick one. Pick any one, if that's what it takes to get you to vote. Or in the case of Todd Blanche, in the next round of voting, to call your senator, or all these senators. Call Senator Cassidy of Louisiana in his office. Call Senator Curtis of Utah. Call Senator Collins of Maine. Call Senator Murkowski of Alaska. They all have offices in Washington. Call the Senate switchboard and tell them they need to oppose Todd Blanche for all the reasons that I just outlined. So the Blanche block movement is important, even if it's not successful. See, I agree with Senator Cory Booker when he joined me and said that There's just some fights that you have to have. And in the long term, in the long arc of history, it will bend towards justice. We just don't know where on the arc we are at any given moment, right? We got to climb a mountain, as our civil rights leaders have said in the past. We just don't know where we are on the mountain. I think we're slightly far from the top. But we have to fight every fight, right? And together here on the Midas Touch Network, on Legal AF, on this Intersection podcast, we will. Listen, we got some breaking news in the middle of the breaking news. I started off my Block Blanche segment at the top of the podcast. As you know, I'm traveling and I'm recording this with a sort of a scorecard of the senators on the Senate floor that need to be appealed to in order to deny Todd Blanche his confirmation. Yeah, he flew through 12 to 10 at the Senate Judiciary Committee, but I said that was the beginning, not the end. And those impassioned speeches and closing arguments by senators like Blumenthal and Booker and Whitehouse and Schiff and Klobuchar and the rest looks like they may have worked. Because you'll remember I said there were 3 C's plus an M that we got to focus on. Collins, Curtis, Cassidy, and Murkowski. We got to get 3 out of those 4, right? 3 out of those 4 to peel away since Mitch McConnell is sort of, out. And we just got reporting, subject to confirmation, but it's looking pretty good, that Susan Collins, of all people, in Maine, fighting for her life to be returned to the Senate, is going to vote no against Todd Blanche. Now, that opens up a tremendous amount of public and Trump-led pressure on Susan Collins. You know what happens next. Think about, I don't know if it's political courage or political suicide, but we now have Susan Collins, who's declared that she's opposed to Donald Trump. You know what's going to happen. I'm sure it's happening right now. Donald Trump, she is addled. She's a rhino. She's a Democrat. She's disgusting. Too late. She's the candidate, right? Unless Donald Trump is going to support the new Democrat who's running in Rhode Island, he's got no choice but Susan Collins for future control of the Senate. And I guess, I wonder what the straw that would break the camel's back would be. But apparently, the most corrupt attorney general in history, lacking completely in ethics, who will only be beholden to Donald Trump and not be independent, that looked like that was a bridge too far, even for Susan Collins. How many times has Susan Collins broken our hearts where I've let off a hot take with, well, there's still a hope. Susan Collins says she may vote with the Democrats on that. And then I got to report, nope, she's not voting on the Democrats on that. Like things related to a woman's right to choose or immigration policies or civil liberties or something like that. But she took a stand on this one. If this holds up,